Check, check 1 2. Okay, we're good, Ben. Ben.
Check, check. This meeting of the Berry County Board of Commissioners is called to order. Will Commissioner, staff, and guests please rise for invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Dear Lord, we thank you for this day and this opportunity to serve you. We ask that your guidance and your hand be with us. May we feel your presence here in this room. Please be with all of the individuals here that are in a position, whether it be on this board or in our community, to make a difference in your name. In your name we ask. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. For the purposes of attendance, the clerk will call the roll.
Campbell.
Here.
Connor.
Here.
Geiger.
Here.
Getty. Here. Gibson.
Here.
Jackson. Here. Smoker.
Here.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Approval of written agenda. At this time, any member of the public wishing to remove an item from the consent agenda and place it under items for consideration may do so. Hearing no such request.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I was waiting for the public, excuse me. But yes, I have prepared an agenda item that I would like to put under items for consideration. It's on rescinding the county emergency status due to the governor's early release of indoor seatings, attendance.
Motion by Connor to add item D to items for consideration, rescission of the emergency declaration. Is there support?
Campbell will support that.
That motion is supported by Campbell. Is there discussion? Hearing no discussion, the question is on amending the agenda. Clerk will call the roll.
Campbell.
Yes.
Connor.
Yes.
Getty.
Aye.
Gibson.
Aye.
Jackson.
Aye.
Smoker.
Aye.
Geiger.
Aye. The item is added to the agenda. Is there further amendments to the agenda? Hearing no further amendments and without objection, the agenda is approved as written. Reports from state and county officers at this time. Any state or county officer or their representative may give a report to the board. Sheriff Leaf, a special presentation today.
I know. Are we on now? There we go. All right. Well, I have a brand new deputy here who actually started yesterday, but we're going to swear her in today. And if you would join with me in welcoming a new deputy from Ionia City, or Ionia County. And we'll get started right now. You solemnly swear that you support the Constitution of the United States of America, the Constitution for the State of Michigan, and that you will faithfully discharge the duties of the Office of Deputy Sheriff in and for the City of Hastings and County of Berry and State of Michigan according to the best of your ability.
Congratulations and thank you for your service to the people of Berry County. We look forward to seeing your contributions here in the county. Is there further reports from state and county officers? Hearing none, limited public comment. At this time, any member of the public wishing to address the board may do so for up to 3 minutes. Hearing no public comment, we'll move ahead. Various correspondence. Does any commissioner have any correspondence to share with the board? Hearing none, consent items.
Mr. Chair, I move for the following consent items. Approval of June 8, 2021 Board of Commissioners meeting minutes. Approval of June 15, 2021 Committee of the Whole meeting minutes. Approval to schedule a public hearing regarding CDBG Emergency Program Income Guidelines at the regular meeting of the Berry County Board of Commissioners on July 13, 2021, and after the public hearing to approve the CDBG Program Income Emergency Repairs Guidelines. And D, approval of Budget Amendment 21-B.
Second. Gibson.
Motion by Smelker, supported by Gibson, for the approval of the items listed under the consent agenda. Discussion is now allowed and a roll call vote is required. All those in favor will vote aye. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk will call the roll.
Connor.
Aye.
Getty. Aye. Gibson.
Aye.
Jackson. Aye. Smelker.
Aye.
Campbell.
Aye.
Geiger.
Aye. The consent agenda is approved. Presentations. We have Joe Verlin from Gaybridge Company here to give an annual audit report.
Morning.
Good morning.
It's great to be here in person. It's the first audit presentation I've done in person in over a year now, and it's exciting to be able to do one of these without worrying about my kids. For all the extra effort that went into this year's audit, we were off-site for the most part throughout the audit process, and that certainly put a lot more burden on the staff, a lot more scanning and uploading. We appreciate the extra effort that the county put into this to make sure that we had a smooth audit process. And we were able to go through and verify the revenues and the expenditures and the assets and liabilities. If you have an electronic version of the audit in front of you, it would be page 5 of the PDF. If you have a printed copy, it's going to be page 2. On the top of page 2, we get to the opinion paragraph. This is what matters more than anything else in this 140-page audit report. I don't intend to go through all 140 pages, but I do want to point out just some of the highlights, this being the most important one. We rendered a clean opinion on the county's financial statements. What that means is that your controls are suitably designed and operating effectively to make sure that you are receiving accurate, timely, verifiable financial statements. And we wrote, in our opinion, the financial statements present fairly, in all material respects, the financial condition of the county as of December 31st, 2020. So the AICPA, American Institute of Certified Public Accountants, refers to this as an unmodified opinion. It doesn't sound flattering. I always explain it as being a clean opinion. This is the gold standard of your financial statements. It means something to achieve it, but it should always be the county's goal to have a clean opinion on your financial statements. The next thing I wanted to point out is the very next paragraph down, we see a change in accounting principle paragraph. During 2020, the county implemented GASB, Governmental Accounting Standard Board Statement number 84. It's a new fiduciary reporting standard. So if you look at in prior audit reports, in the back end of the basic financial statements, you will see what was referred to as agency funds. Those funds are now referred to as custodial funds. Not a huge change, but we did at least want to make sure that we point that out to the readers of the financial statements, that there is a slight change in the naming of the financial statements. And the statements for those fiduciary funds look a little bit different, but not exactly a sweeping change in your financial statements. The next section of the audit report that I take readers through starts on page 5. If you have the bound copy in front of you, if you have the PDF, it would be page 8. This is management's discussion and analysis. I always describe this as being the Cliff Note version of the entire audit. Here we get 10 pages. We can see some financial highlights in these 10 pages. We also see comparative financial statements to get an idea for some of the trends that the county's financials are showing, at least during the past couple of years. And then we have some narrative that explains reasons behind some of the more significant changes in your financial statements. So the financial highlights, that first bullet point on the top of page 5 shows that the the assets exceed the liabilities of the county by $50,646,758. It's referred to as net position. In the corporate world, we call this equity. It's a theoretical number. Theoretically, if the county sold all of its assets and paid all of its liabilities, there'd be about $50 million left over. We'd like to see this number trending up over time, and you can see as that bullet point continues on, that number, the $50 million, is an increase over the previous year by $5.9 million. So sometimes my clients will ask me, are we better off this year than we were at the end of last year? And the answer to that question is yes, by about $5.9 million. So seeing net position's healthy, it's trending in the right direction. Second bullet point down, now we're talking about the fund balance of the county. So this is the more traditional method of looking at your finances. This is a shorter term focus. It's more cash basis, not quite cash basis, but we're looking at what are the county's immediate resources compared to your immediate obligations. Total fund balance across all the governmental funds came in at $15.8 million. That was an increase of about $1.1 million. So we're excluding delinquent tax revolving fund. We're excluding the transit. We're also excluding Thornapple Manor. We're just focusing on your special revenue funds, debt service funds, and your general fund. And the $1.1 million increase in fund balance essentially means that your cash in exceeded cash out by $1.1 million during the year. Third bullet point down, now we look at the general fund only. General fund had $5.193 million of fund balance. That was an increase of $412,231. Talk about the most important fund of any local unit of government. It's general fund, $5.19 million. That was an increase during the year of $412,000, both very good signs. Healthy, stable financial condition as of December 31st, 2020. And even with all of the challenges that the county faced, certainly there was a lot of uncertainties, especially early on in the year. You guys had an increase of $412,000 during 2020. So again, very prudent financial management during a year full of a significant amount of uncertainty. And if we look at just the unassigned fund balance, as that bullet point continues on, there's $2.2 million of unassigned fund balance in the county's general fund. The unassigned fund balance represents the amount that you guys have available to cover the day-to-day cost of running the county. Salaries, wages, utilities, supplies. If we take that number and divide it by the annualized general fund expenditures and transfers out, you guys have 12.5%. So you've got about 2 months worth of reserves sitting in your unassigned fund balance in your general fund. Again, healthy financial position as of December 31st, 2020. In addition to that unassigned fund balance of $2.2 million, the county also has $2.8 million of committed fund balance. And we'll talk a little bit more about what makes up that $2.8 million as we go through the report. Third bullet point down, I'll just quickly cover these. Your fixed assets are pretty much break even compared to the previous year. In other words, the amount that your infrastructure has depreciated, you guys have replenished it. Came in at $35.3 million as of December 31st, 2020, compared to $35.2 million as of December 31st, 2019. And then that last bullet point shows that long-term debt decreased by about $1.7 million. So continuing on through the report, if you skip now to page 8 or page 11, if you have an electronic version. Page 8 is a comparative statement of net position for the last 2 years of the county. A couple of rows I wanted to point out. First, we always like to see how cash is doing. Very top row. If we look at the very last 2 columns, December 31st, 2019, total cash was $32.3 million compared to $37.2 million as of December 31st, 2020. So a healthy increase in cash during 2020, about a $5 million increase. If we look at the net OPEB asset. So if you go down about 7-8 rows, we can see the very bottom row of non-current assets. There's a net OPEB asset. It's very unusual to see a net OPEB asset. This is the county continuing to implement GASB, Governmental Accounting Standard Board Statement number 75. It's a relatively new number showing up on your financial statements. The fact that it's an asset means that you guys have funded more than you need to cover your total retiree health care liability. And most of our clients are pay-as-you-go. The fact that you guys are ahead of the curve is really just prudent financial management, having those resources set aside to cover that retiree health care liability. Now, if we go about 80% of the way down the page, we see the net pension liability in the non-current liability section. If we look at December 31st, 2019, the county reported $15.8 million of net pension liability. and that compares to a decrease of $2.3 million, which was $13.5 million as of December 31st, 2020. A couple of reasons: the county is making additional voluntary payments to decrease its net pension liability, so that's paying off, it's yielding some dividends, it's decreasing your net pension liability. In addition to that, 2019 and 2020 both had strong investment performances on your retirement assets, so that's pushing down your net pension liability as well, which is certainly good news. As of about this time last year, when we were talking about your net pension liability, we didn't know what the market was going to do because of COVID. The fact that it rebounded and we saw a decrease was certainly a nice unexpected surprise during 2020. And then if you look a couple rows, 4 rows down from there, we see pension-related deferred inflows. I won't try to explain what deferred inflows mean, except that when the pension assets do better than expected, we take that amount, the excess earnings, and we spread those over 5 years. So there's 4 years of excess investment earnings that we are going to defer. Thus, the increase in pension-related deferred inflows from $660,000 up to $2.1 million as of December 31st, 2020. What that means is there's an extra $1.4 million of excess earnings that happened in 2020 that we're going to recognize as a decrease in pension expense in the ensuing 4 years. So we don't get to recognize the full benefit that the Governmental Accounting Standard Board wants us to kind of smooth out those earnings a little bit, just in case, if 2021 has a down year, we want to be able to net those gains and losses against each other. So it ultimately gets spread over 5 years. I did at least want to point that out briefly. If you turn one more page to page 9 of the printed copy, page 12 of the PDF, we get to comparative revenues and expenses for the past 2 years of the county. Just a couple of rows I wanted to point out here. Again, I'm looking at the very last 2 columns. So 2019, the second row down from the top, operating grants and contributions came in at about $5.8 million compared to $11.4 million for the 12 months ended December 31st, 2020. Biggest reason for that was the additional CARES Act funding, as well as PPP loan forgiveness that was recognized at Thornapple Manor. So a lot of that can be attributed to business type activities. Those middle 2 columns, you can see a big jump. 2019 was $1,023,000 compared to $6.045 million as of December 31st, 2020. Not necessarily related. Certainly the county did have some CARES Act funding that benefited the governmental activities, but a lot of this has to do with additional grant funding that went into Thornapple Manor. As we scroll down there, we can see that the Thornapple Manor expenses, about 10 rows up from the bottom, jumped up. In 2019, I'm looking in the 4th column over, was $2,059,000 compared to $22.7 million as of December 31st, 2020. So we see a significant jump in expenses related to Thornapple Manor. So they needed that extra funding just to make sure they were able to cover those additional costs of providing health care during the pandemic. Altogether, if we look at the very last 2 columns, about 5 rows up from the bottom, we can see, 3 rows up from the bottom, the changes in net position was a positive $1.9 million in 2019. And then second row from the last, we can see the change in net position was a favorable $5.9 million. So back-to-back increasing net position for the last 2 years of the county. Certainly a very good sign in terms of financial stability. Continuing on through the report, if we turn now to page 17 of the bound copy, page 20 of the PDF. The statement shows us the balance sheet for the governmental funds of the county as of December 31st, 2020. And just wanted to point out, we talked already, the very first column shows the general fund. Just past it. If you go backwards one page. One more page, sorry. Right there. Okay. So the very bottom section shows fund balance, and the very first column is general fund. We can see the unassigned fund balance, like I mentioned before, came in at $2.2 million. The committed fund balance is $2.85 million as of December 31st, 2020. There's a combining schedule in the back of the report that I'll point out that shows what makes up that $2.85 million. Essentially, every December, the county board appropriates surplus funds from the general fund to various capital improvement funds. I'll show what makes up that $2.84 million on a following page, but that's what's happening. So the county commissioners are earmarking funds to allow for future capital improvements across the county. The other thing that I wanted to point out on this schedule or statement is it shows that unassigned fund balance is positive in the general fund, and all the other funds of the county have positive fund balances as well. So not only is the general fund stable as of December 31st, 2020, but all the other governmental funds are at least break even or showing a surplus fund balance. Again, just further evidence that the financial condition of the county is strong as of December 31st, 2020. Now if we go to page 71 of the bound copy of the audit report, or page 74 of the PDF, we get 6-year comparative financial statements for the county's net pension liability. So you'll want to go backwards about 60 pages. A little bit further backwards. There's all kinds of combining statements and schedules in the back end there. Still a little bit further back. Closer. 2 more pages from here. Okay, right there. Oh, I'm sorry, that's OPEB. Backwards 2 more pages. I'll describe the contents of it. The 2020 column shows the amount of assets and liabilities that the county is reporting in its net pension liability. So the first section, about 1/3 of the way down the page, we can see that the total pension liability was $61 million. That represents the total amount that the county is going to pay over the next 30, 40, 50 years, according to your actuaries, the MERS actuarial valuation that was performed, to fully fund your pension retirement benefit to active employees as well as future current retirees. It's an estimate. The actuaries crunched the numbers. They came up with $61 million as their ballpark estimate of that number. About 2/3 of the way down, we see the total assets, pension assets, that the county has set aside to cover that liability. That number comes in at $50,594,350. So if we take your total assets of about $51 million divided by your total liabilities of $61 million, the county is 82.91% funded. State of Michigan, Michigan Department of Treasury, as well as MERS expect a minimum level of 60% funding. You guys are at 82.91%, so about 23 points better than that minimum threshold that MERS and Treasury have established. So you're well on your way to covering it. In fact, we ran a synopsis across all of our local units of government. We've got about 50 local units that have defined benefit pension plan. Just to get an idea, where's the average funding percentage? The average that we're seeing is 70%. Now, it's not representative of the entire state, it's just representative of our clients, but you guys are still 13 points better than the local units that we work with. So strong in terms of your funding of your net pension liability. And if we go to the very next page, page 72, we get a look at the actuarially determined contribution. This is the amount that the MERS actuary is telling the county needs to be funded at a minimum each year to fully meet your pension obligation. During 2020, the 12 months ended December 31st, 2020, the MERS actuary stated that you guys owed $2.3 million to meet your ongoing obligation. You actually paid $3.28 million. So about $958,000 more than was needed to be paid in. Some voluntary contributions were made during the year. And you can see that the county has a history of doing that to continue chipping away at that. Thus, you guys are 13 points better than most of our clients. So again, it's putting a burden on your budgets to be able to do that, but it certainly is paying off in terms of your overall funding percentage. And then if we turn one more page to page 73, we get a look at the very same schedule, more or less, for your retiree health care liability funding percentage. This shows that in 2020, your total OPEB liability for the county, about 1/3 of the way down the page, was $1.52 million, compared to $1.66 million of total assets, about 2/3 of the way down. And like I mentioned, most of our counties, most of our clients have elected the pay-as-you-go method. So you don't have to advance fund it, but it makes sense to do so Obviously, when you look at the net investment income about halfway down the page, there's $198,176 of earnings that your retiree healthcare assets have earned for you. It's taking the burden off of your general fund and letting your assets do the work for you. So it certainly is benefiting the county to have this retiree healthcare obligation funded in advance. Altogether, you guys are 109% funded. Most of our clients are 0% funded, so you're 109 points better than most of our local units. So you're well ahead of all the state requirements, just doing a very good job compared to other benchmarks, other local units in terms of funding that retiree healthcare liability. A couple more pages I wanted to point out. Page 77 of the bound copy of the report, page 80 of the PDF. This schedule shows all of the funds that, according to the Governmental Accounting Standards Board, there's a statement number 54. They require us to group together certain funds that are similar to a general fund. So we've got all these funds. When we aggregate them together, we come up with what the general fund is. Each year, the Board of Commissioners appropriates a certain amount of surplus from the general fund to be allocated to various funds. When we look at the building rehab fund, you can see $2.75 million that has been committed over the past several years to fund future building projects. We can see that Parks and Recreation and Agriculture Preservation have smaller amounts that have been committed for future expenditures. And then if you look in the very last column, total general funds, 5 rows up from the bottom, we can see the committed fund balances across those 3 funds totaling the $2.84 million that was pointed out earlier. The next schedule that I wanted to point out similarly shows the amount that the county has been funding in the internal service funds. It's page 93 of the bound copy, page 98 of the PDF. 2 other funds that the county has been funding to allow for future capital expenses. The data processing fund, which is in the very first column there. If you want to back it up. So the data processing fund has unrestricted net position. We're switching our measurement focus to accrual accounting, so now we don't call it fund balance, we're calling it net position. But the unrestricted net position came in at $1.28 million as of December 31st for data processing. And then the vehicle fund has unrestricted net position of $926,000. Both of those funds received a transfer in during 2020 from the general fund of $162,729 according to the formula that was passed by resolution by the board. So you can I just wanted to make sure to point that out. I think some of these numbers kind of get buried. You know, every year you guys are making this appropriation to advance fund some of these capital improvements. I just wanted to make sure I'm bringing some transparency to that so you guys can see what those running totals are when looking at the actual audited financial statements. The last thing that I wanted to point out is page 132 of the bound copy of the report, or page 135 of the PDF. So this is the schedule of findings and question costs. This gets us into the federal single audit section of the report. And about 10 pages of the report are allocated or dedicated to the federal single audit. This talks about the type of testing that we did, the federal awards that we considered and looked at. It shows the major program that we audited, which when you look at the schedule of findings and question cost, about halfway down the page, we can see the Coronavirus Relief Fund was the federal major program that we looked at this year. So we're required to switch it up and make sure we don't always look at the same federal funds. We need to take a look at different programs. This year, it certainly makes sense to look at the Coronavirus Relief Fund because it was a substantial amount of dollars received by the county. The feds published about 6, 7 different compliance requirements that we're required to take a deep dive and look at. Make sure that the county is receiving those funds correctly, they're expending the funds correctly, they're reporting correctly, things of that nature. So we go through and we actually provide a second opinion on your financial statements, and you can see that about 40% of the way down the page. It's referred to as the type of auditor's report issued on compliance for major programs. That too, not very flattering, but it was unmodified. In other words, When we looked at your coronavirus relief funds, we made sure that you guys were spending them in accordance with the compliance requirements established by the federal government. Everything we've looked at and tested met those requirements. So there's no compliance findings. There's nothing that we needed to put in writing and bring to the attention of the Board of Commissioners. It's a new program. There's a lot of moving parts and pieces. Some of the rules are being published as the funds are being received and expended. Certainly the degree of difficulty was much higher this year than in previous years, but everything came back compliant. Nothing that we needed to put in writing. So again, just a indication that the various departments of the county have good controls in place to make sure that they're spending those dollars in accordance with not only your purchasing policy, your internal requirements, but as well as the county's. You guys are following all the federal requirements as well. Those are the highlights I've got. I'm certainly happy to take any further questions the board might have.
So we'll start with Commissioner Smelker.
Have any problems getting your information that you needed from the county?
Nope. I mean, there were certainly some challenges with scanning and uploading documents, but that's inherent with all of our clients. In fact, you guys, your audit report was done much earlier than most of our county audit reports this year, so it has been a challenge with regard to getting the information back and forth between the audit team and our clients. So just the inherent difficulties of sharing pages and pages of information through a secure portal.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Material weaknesses. Did you find any material weaknesses with the county?
Nope. If we had any, we would have reported them on the schedule of finding and question costs. They all came back clean.
Great. And on these page 115, like that's not a good example. 119, we have like the 2006 Middleville sewer debt, 99 Middleville sewer debt. What happens to those funds once the project has been completed and you still have funds left?
That's a good question for bond counsel. That's typically what we direct our clients to find out
Okay.
what they can do with those leftover amounts to make sure. Typically, they can be rolled into other similar type projects if there is a reserve left over, but we always reserve that and deflect that responsibility to the bond counsel.
Great, thank you. Other questions? Vivian?
Besides your random audit on the federal funds with the OPEB, or excuse me, with the COVID, did you do any other random selection of other programs, and did you have good cooperation from administration and those programs?
Yes.
Administration.
So in addition to the major federal program, we have to look at any grant that's direct and material to your financial statements. Because you guys are subject to Yellow Book guidance, that is the consideration that we have to give to all of your grants. We don't do as deep of a dive on your compliance on our compliance testing over those grants, but we do ask ourselves the question, what could go wrong with these other grants? So child support enforcement, anything that's above a certain dollar threshold, we do take a look at those, and we at least take a look at the drawdown request. We make sure everything articulates with the financial statements. Any of the key compliance requirements, we make sure those are being met. We're just not going through with a fine-tooth comb and going through the 5,000-step questionnaire that the Feds publish for the major programs.
Okay. And everyone cooperated when you did a little.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Further questions? This report may be dense, but it is sterling. Thank you to all of the staff members in Berry County government that made this possible, including our administrator, Michael Brown. This is a good report, and it should give our taxpayers confidence that we are good stewards of their money. Thank you for your report.
Okay, thank you very much.
What do we want, Commissioners? Want to take a break? All right, we'll move ahead. Next, we have the American Rescue Plan ARPA Advisory Committee.
Well,
Bonnie
two
Getty.
of us, anyway. I did want to say congratulations on the audit report. I know how difficult an audit is to do in COVID over this time has been tremendously difficult, and congratulations. So we have been working with several townships already, and I'm just going to let Lanny just give you an update.
Thank you. Members of the committee have been going out and meeting with the townships. Just last week, I was at Irving Township. We met with them, explained to them what was going on. A lot of our townships are really struggling with understanding how the dollars can be used and are wanting to learn more. So we're preparing all of those different kinds of things for them. Interestingly enough, not only is it our townships in Berry County, but I ended up presenting the same information at Bound County, or Bound Township in Kent County, and St. Joe County is also looking at the ARPA documents the ARPA documents that Bonnie has for you, because they're interested in how you guys are looking at moving forward. So it's been a great opportunity to be out and to help all of our local governmental entities move forward with this.
So Ben, you were right. We're first yet again. Berry County is on the beginning cusp of the right thing to do. So one of the things that has been asked is if we would prepare a request for proposal along with a proposal that the townships or any other interested party could use to apply to the county to see if you were interested in partnering with them on any one of these identified categories that ARPA has set forward. So I sent to you two different applications. One is a very simple application that has been used in other manners and in other ways. The second one that you received yesterday, which was RFP2, is more detailed and really goes hand in hand with the information that has been released to us regarding how they would need to report back on any funding that they receive. And I really would recommend that we use the more detailed ones so that the grantees or the folks that you award some of these dollars to would really understand what they have to be able to report back to the federal government, because I think that's the part that blindsides people sometimes, is they don't really understand the depth of the reports that they're going to need to have. So those are the two documents that I forwarded to you. I sent these out to our committee and had everyone review them before I brought them to you today. And so the committee has approved and requests, and actually doesn't request, but is looking forward to hearing from you on whether or not you would like to proceed forward with one or either of these applications.
This is a very complicated and unique situation for county government. And so Vice Chair Connor and I did speak with Bonnie last week, or was it 2 weeks ago? 2 weeks ago. About how the ARPA task force can help us make decisions. If you look at RFP2, look at all the different requirements or all the different information that you need to know in order to just get the conversation started about receiving these funds. So we really do need expertise, a group of individuals to help us get through the process of just evaluating them. So right now we're kind of at a point where we have one request that has came in already, the Drain Commissioner's request, and we do anticipate more. But if we go through a process that categorizes and I don't want to use the word vets, but streamlines the information so we understand what's in front of us, it's really going to make us a better board and put us in a position where we can make better decisions. So the ARPA Advisory Committee really has given us a chance to partner with them and lean on their expertise. So if I'm understanding this correctly, you're wanting to know whether the board wants to go forward and partnering with the ARPA committee and issuing one of these two RFPs.
Correct. And I think that Greg Moore put it best when he said what we really want to do is help people invest these dollars and not just spend them.
That's
So
a good
10
one.
years from now, we can look back and say the very best decision was made, and we removed some barriers for particular communities that allowed them to move forward and be able to actually create some community assets.
That's a good way of putting it. Discussion from commissioners. Catherine. Dave, can you share your mic?
Absolutely. Yep. Let me get my pen.
John.
On these, I like RFP too, but if local governments or anyone that wants to turn these in has questions, you will help them with that, right?
No.
Just
That's
send
my
them to
favorite
John.
answer.
I don't say no very often.
Just put John's cell phone number on there. Other questions from commissioners? Go ahead.
Can I add one more comment a minute?
Yes.
So on page 3, I guess it would be, at the bottom it says, where appropriate, also include information on your jurisdiction's planned use of other federal recovery funds, including other programs under the American Rescue Plan. These are things that you're going to be asked to do as well. I mean, this was all based on what you were asked for. So I want you to know that, and then it says the emergency rental assistance, housing assistance, and so forth. So the United Way, we are the ones that have received that SARA funding. We'll be providing that information to you. I can tell you as of today, we have spent all of the money. We've actually exceeded the dollars that we've gotten from the state, have been approved for the rest of the dollars. We actually got that a week earlier than what they had approved. They had initially approved $1.14 million in rental assistance for Berry County through the SARA, and we had already spent the $600,000 that they had told us we had. We didn't have the money. We still don't have the money, but I've been told it was on its way as of yesterday. So we'll be able to provide that information to you on the housing for all of Berry County, but we're also going to break that down by township so that you have a good understanding of where that is. Because right now, I will tell you that one of the, I think you'll be very surprised by the percent of those in Yankee Springs Township that have received rental assistance. I believe it's the highest township in all of Berry County for receiving rental assistance.
Delaney. Other questions or comments?
I have a question, I guess maybe it directed to you and to you, Ben. So if we finalize this RFP 2, then what? Do we post it in the paper? Do we give a deadline?
Yeah, you're definitely going to have a deadline. And then what the ARPA committee has proposed that we can do for you is review these, and because you're going to, I don't know what you're going to get. I don't know if you're going to get 25 or 250, right? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But what we would
We
do
don't either.
Right. But what we would be willing to do for you is to review them and then make sure that they actually meet the guidelines before they're passed on to you.
Oh, okay.
Okay? Because I think that that's another piece that we do as far as Lanny and myself in our positions and for our organizations is our grant committee may not see all the grant applications that come in because they may not be either complete and we have to get more information, or maybe they don't qualify at all because they're not part of our county or they are not a 501c3. So there's different qualifications, and we just want to make sure that what you get from us is something that you can make an educated decision on.
Thank you. That was very important to me because, I mean, we've been listening and we've been reading and getting information, but it's so very difficult to, because it's like, yes, maybe, or go ahead and try it. And that's not how the county likes to operate.
Well, Lanny could tell you the story about the Sarah dollars that came in, and they got changes to how they could spend the money on a daily basis, and still are getting those changes.
Yes.
So we want to help you maneuver that.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And Jennifer and Greg and Craig Jenkins and everybody has been so helpful through all of this. So
Thank you.
you're welcome. And
Thank you.
you just need to decide on a date that you would like to receive the first round of grants in, because you only got half of your money, right? And then you'll get the second half in a year or 2 years, whatever that may be. And then you'll do another round at that point, I would think.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Do you have a suggested date or a suggested month?
I don't know that there's a good time or a bad time. I would think that the sooner you make some decisions, and that then people can actually get started on the work that they need to get accomplished, because it's timely, right? So, but you want to give people time also to complete these and meet with us. And like, I'm meeting with the city of Hastings this week, and we've met with Berry Township, and we're really working with them on, and some of them are far more ready than others, because they've already done feasibility studies and they have all the other pieces in place.
Do you have any thoughts, Catherine? Sounds good to me. Thoughts? September is a good month.
Well, the other thing is, if you don't get as many as you have to spend, you can send out another RFP when another group is ready. You can look at doing this in several different time periods. Maybe you do one, and maybe you set that up at first. You do one in September, and you have another one available in December, so that would give people more of a time period, and then you kind of divide those dollars up as well as to when you want to spend them.
Mm-hmm.
So then what we can do is with the connections that we already have with the local units of government, we can send the RFPs directly to them. And then you could do the same, Michael could do that with the department heads, and then put it in the paper. So I think that you'd be well covered with that process.
So does September 17th work? It's a Friday. Or would you like later in the month? Or would you suggest?
September 17th is good.
Okay.
When would you have the RFP corrected and ready to?
Well, it doesn't look like there's much to correct.
Okay.
So I feel
don't know-
pretty
I
good
don't know
about
what your
getting that
workload
to
is.
you in about 15 minutes.
Okay, thank you. I didn't know what your workload looks like, so.
Yeah, yeah. You're welcome.
All right, this is good. This is a good process, and it's going to make a positive impact in the community. So,
Well, and just I would like to congratulate Ben on having the vision and the foresight to put this together for the community. And I also wanted to let you know, because of this, I've been invited to speak at 2 MAC conferences that are about this process, and I've also been invited to be a part of a statewide coalition that is coming together to look at the possibility of doing some regional partnerships between all of our philanthropy groups. So it's really incredible, and I applaud you for inviting us to be part of this process and to be helpful. That's really all we wanted to do. So thank you very much.
thank you.
Ben?
Thank you.
Now, is there anything we can do to help the committee? Do you need any other members or anything? If you do,
Well,
don't
you know,
hesitate to ask to go over
Yeah.
these after we get them and stuff.
I mean, if you all, anybody that wants to be part of the process of when they come in to read them and vet them, I would welcome that. We're not trying to take this away from anyone or be, you know, and it is a helpful process to really look at and be on the other side of the allocation piece, right? And to really understand overall needs and the struggle that one has in deciding, right? Because there's going to be, and I don't want to call them winners and losers, but it's going to be like that. And so how do you then message why someone didn't get an allocation and why someone else did? So anytime anybody wants to be part of this,
It's great. Transparency is
Yep.
important. Any other questions or comments? Great. Well, thank you very much. This is going to be a very impactful win for the community when we get done with this process. And already we're seeing fruits of our success. So thank you.
thank you.
If there's no objection, I'd like to take a 5-minute break.
Thank you.
Hearing no objection, the board will stand at recess.
Oh, this Vivian's thing? I don't know why.
Are we done?
July 1st was the date, but we knew they were opening on July 1st.
Check. Check.
Craig's mother, didn't you?
Yeah, good, really. You know, us older guys like that more. I know. Makes his bones feel good.
My father goes to Florida every year. He was always a Michigan winter person, and Mom would go down to Florida for spring break, and he never went. And when they retired, he kind of begrudgingly went down, and after that first winter, he says, you know, I get it.
What makes it huge, too.
He says, you know, it might be chilly in the morning. He says, and you might have to wear a sweatshirt, but he says, you know you're going to get that sun and that warmth.
Yeah, I feel when winter comes, I can feel that. Bones hurt more, my joints. And spring rolls around and starts getting that relief.
Yeah, I hear you.
Oh, yeah, I got it.
John's still on his phone.
This is my granddaughter. We found someone
Yeah.
right in our neighborhood that's doing the riding lessons. And so her little brother, who will be 2 tomorrow, got into the act. But
Oh,
this
yeah.
is my granddaughter. And then they're the same age. And this is her horse. So Miss Fire.
You know, they almost seem to make the little kids enjoy looking at
Oh,
moving
yeah.
on the
Yeah.
horse,
Yeah.
getting on it.
Yeah. There she is, right. Yeah.
It's just so important
Yeah.
at that age. Yes.
Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll.
Getty,
Aye.
Gibson,
Aye.
Jackson. Smoker.
Aye.
Campbell,
Aye.
Connor,
Aye.
Geiger.
Aye. The item is approved.
Item B, approval of Berry County Annual Financial Report for the year ending 12/31/20.
Second.
Motion by Gibson, supported by Connor, for approval of the Berry County Annual Financial Report for the year ended December 31st, 2020. Is there discussion? Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll.
Gibson,
Aye.
Jackson,
Aye.
Smoker,
Aye.
Campbell,
Aye.
Connor,
Aye.
Getty,
Aye.
Geiger.
Aye. The item is approved.
Item C, adoption of Resolution 21-17, resolution to initiate lake level project for Canterbury Lake.
Is there support?
Campbell, support.
Motion by Gibson, supported by Campbell, for adoption of Resolution 21-17, a resolution to initiate lake level project for Canterbury Lake. Is there discussion? Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll.
Jackson,
Aye.
Smoker,
Aye.
Campbell,
Aye.
Connor,
Aye.
Getty,
Aye.
Gibson,
Aye.
Geiger.
Aye. The resolution is adopted. This time, the chair would entertain a motion for approval to rescind Resolution 21-11, a resolution to authorize the declaration of the state of emergency for the County of Berry effective June 30, 2021.
Support.
That motion is made by Connor.
I'm
Is there
sorry.
support?
Support, Gibson.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion. Vice Chair Connor, do you want to explain what your motion is?
So, as I left a message on your,
I did receive it.
did you get it? So, we are very fortunate, instead of waiting until July 1st, Governor Whitmer, beginning June 22nd, capacity in both indoor and outdoor settings will increase to 100%, and the state will no longer require residents to wear a face mask. It also, she states in here that regarding Michigan is experiencing 24.3 cases per million and has recorded a 1.9% positivity rate over the last 7 days, and that was on the 17th. So that's good news. I know that most people, everybody is just so much looking forward to returning to normal. I can't tell you, in my neighborhoods and in the places of business that I go and people that I talk to, that everybody is so happy that life is kind of getting back to normal. Because of her upping or her opening up the state quicker, I think that we owe it as leaders in the county to be in line with what's going on. And when I read the resolution again, and I see regarding the whereas, where the conditions that we said were present when we did the emergency order, this criteria isn't here any longer. We're not having the virus outbreak locally, regionally, the policies, strict responses, bars and restaurants. I mean, we need to rescind this. I've had Hastings City Council, I've had townships ask me to please lift this so that they can go back to normal. So I'm asking the board to be in conjunction with the other leadership, with the state, and to lift this emergency order. The Open Meetings Act, even the legislature lifted their restrictions at the end of March and left it up to the locals, and I think that we need to be working with the other legislatures and administration to move forward.
Further discussion. Commissioner Jackson?
What is it that these local units of governments can't do now that they're able to do, and what is the difference? I've got a couple concerns about this. One is we've decided this twice already. It keeps coming up before the board. I almost feel like we're being badgered on this because you're not comfortable with this emergency order that's in place, that nothing has changed since the last time we decided it. We knew the governor's restrictions were coming down July 1st. They came down a week early. That's not really a big deal in my book. I mean, every other state in the country has followed with the same thing. I go back to what we had discussed earlier, is that I think although your thoughts are correct, that cases are down, things are opening back up, that we're super excited to have things back to the quote-unquote normal. I also have a feeling that that might be very short-sighted on the part of this board to make a recommendation to repeal something we've already decided twice. There's a number of different variants out there. There's cases on the rise in certain parts of the country. We're 3 months away from pushing people back indoors again and getting back together. We don't really know where this is going. They're already talking about revaccinations and updates, just like a regular flu shot, that we don't quite know what's happening with this. We've allowed, several units of government have asked for us to continue the state of emergency because this is the tool that we can provide for those local units of government to continue to operate efficiently using what's allowed via the Open Meetings Act and using Zoom or using other hybrid methods to bring people together. As we discussed last time, that this allows people to meet remotely. It allows people to participate in government that weren't able to participate in government because of our time schedules and our meetings. There's really nothing that rescinding this does. By leaving this in place, it's not impairing local units of government. It's not restricting what they can do. It's not hindering them in any way. They can go back to doing business however they see fit. So, like I said, we've decided this issue twice already, and here it is 2 or 3 weeks later back up again. So I don't know if we have board rules that prohibit or discourage this. Apparently we do not. It's kind of a surprise that it was on our agenda this morning, but I mean, are we going to continue to see this every 2 weeks? My thoughts haven't changed.
Thank you, Commissioner. Further discussion?
I have some, Ben. Unfortunately, from my districts, I go along with Vivian on my townships have all asked me to please get this lifted as soon as possible. The main reason for my area is that we have very poor internet service, and we also have a large majority of my generation, which although it meets the Open Meeting Act's requirement, if we do not have the knowledge and we do not have the internet service, we really cannot participate in these meetings that are going on by the Zoom. I myself had to personally dig in a little bit and figure out how to do this thing. But a lot of my constituents cannot do it, and if they can, they do not have good enough internet service to do it. So they are being left out of these public meetings. Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to echo what Commissioner Jackson said. This really is the only tool that we have to give individual local units of government the opportunity to make their own decisions. They're accountable to their constituents on the decisions that they make. All we're doing is allowing them that that ability to meet the Open Meetings Act should they decide to meet via Zoom or remotely. Every township, every local unit of government still has the ability to meet in person. This does not restrict that ability to meet in person.
Well, local governments are currently meeting by Zoom.
The Village of Middleville is using a hybrid system.
What other ones do we know of?
City of Hastings.
Okay, the city. Here too. We know anybody else? There could be a school board out there that we don't know of. None of my local municipalities are meeting by Zoom.
Health Department's still meeting by Zoom.
Solid Waste Oversight Committee.
BCRN still meeting Zoom.
Brownfield,
until August.
Brownfield and EDA.
Until August? Brownfield and EDA.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
If this order were not, the Open Meetings Act, everyone would be, according to the Open Meetings Act, the only people that would be allowed to participate by virtual, electronic, Zoom, whatever you wish to call it, would be military. That's the way the legislature wrote their portion of it during the COVID. But by us declaring a local state of emergency, I do not think that local state of emergency exists in Berry County. That's what we're talking about. Is the county saying that, this board is saying that this county is in a state of an emergency? And I don't agree with that. And I think as the legislature, as the governor, and I think we need to be moving in the same direction that our counterparts are. But it has nothing to do with the Open Meetings Act. It has the fact to do with that I don't believe that we are in a local state of an emergency anymore.
Is there further discussion? I see what you're saying. Hearing none, the clerk call the roll. No, let me repeat the question. Hearing no further discussion, the question before the board is approval to rescind Resolution 2111, a resolution to authorize the declaration of the state of emergency for the county of Berry effective June 30th, 2021. Clerk, call the roll.
Smelker.
Aye.
Campbell.
Aye.
Connor.
Aye.
Getty.
No.
Gibson.
Aye.
Jackson.
No.
Geiger.
Aye. Resolution is rescinded.
Thank you.
Is there further discussion or further business? We have no unfinished business. New business. This time the chair would entertain a motion for the adoption of Resolution 2118, a resolution approving the tentative agreement reached and successor collective bargaining agreement with the Police Officer Labor Council Deputy Sheriff Unit for January 1, 2021 through December 31st, 2025, and authorize the chair to sign the successor agreement.
So move.
Second. Gibson.
Motion is made by Gibson, supported. Motion made by Smelker, supported by Gibson. Discussion. Is there any discussion on it? Hearing none,
I'm
go
sorry.
ahead.
So there was some holdback, but reading through this, it sounds like they've settled with what most of the other groups did.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Is there further discussion? Hearing none, the clerk call the roll.
Campbell.
Aye.
Connor.
Aye.
Getty.
Aye.
Gibson.
Aye.
Jackson.
Aye.
Smelker.
Aye.
Geiger.
Aye, the resolution is adopted. County Administrator's report. Chairperson's report. A couple of things. First, the agreement with the state of Michigan for the Office of Community Corrections that we approved a couple of weeks ago has made an amendment, but it's just a textual amendment that has no practical or any impact on the content from our regards. Michael, if you want to come up and help me wade through this. So they did add a page to the agreement that doesn't apply to us.
The language that was modified in the agreement is specifically under certification and assurances section, and it adds to the language that the grantee certifies to the best of its knowledge and belief that it and its principles. We agreed to the previous language said the grantee certifies, and then it lists what we certify to or agree to certify to, i.e. that we're not presently debarred, suspended, proposed for debarment, that we're able to certify to all of the statements. What they've added in that is that the language, to the best of its knowledge and belief, that it and its principles. So the purpose behind the addition is relating to third parties that are involved in this contract. So they wanted a bit of, if you may, a belt and suspenders approach to make sure that not only were we agreeing as the first party, but then if there's a second, well, in this case, a third party to this contract, that those individuals as well. So it really does not have any bearing on the substance of what, because we don't have that situation. The agreement is simply between us and the state of Michigan in this case. We don't have those third parties. And then the second change is that the language currently says, and I paraphrase a little bit, in all grantee covered transactions and in all solicitations for lower tier covered transactions, that we will require lower tier participants to comply with 2 CFR Parts 180, and they added and Part 1300 - Uniform Procedures for State Highway Safety Grant Programs. It's just a further clarification of what that 2 CFR Part 180 is. So if you were to look that up, it's the CFR stands for the Federal Registry. It's their grants. If you happen to look in our audit, you will see, recall that our auditor, Joe Verlin, referred you back to that single audit. In that section, there are all of those federal awards, and they're recognized by CFR numbers. And this is just adding Part 1300 - Uniform Procedures for State Highway Safety Grant Programs. Both very technical changes, but don't happen to apply to us. We do have to acknowledge that we received those and that we agree to them, but again, they don't directly apply to us.
So is it acceptable for that I sign the agreement without having to?
Sure. Sure.
All set?
I'm all set. Chairperson's report. So we just covered that. Check. On a personal level, we did lose an outstanding member of the community, a great constituent, Hod Hall, who was a member of the Berry County Sheriff's Posse for a number of years and a great philanthropist and just a legend within the Maple Valley community. So I did attend that funeral, and he will be sorely missed. And if there's, without objection, I'd like to take a moment of silence right now to just honor Hod Hall's life. Thank you, Commissioners. Vice Chairperson's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The big thing that I'm so happy is off my plate, but it's a lot of work. We had our Gun Lake Improvement Board meeting and then transitioned into 2 public hearings to continue that weed assessment for another 3 and the program to keep Gun Lake free of invasive weeds for another 3 years at no additional monies to the residents. So I'm happy to have that off. It was a lot of coordinating with the 4 townships, 2 counties. It's a pretty big meeting, and it just poured that day. So I was hoping for a bigger crowd, but that never helps. But we had a good meeting. We got a lot of questions answered, new people that wanted to know what it was all about. So Also attended our first building meeting that we had. I'm very happy. It is moving right along. The studs, they were drywalling, painting. They were doing one of the stairwells. Everything's moving along there, saving us a little money. I'll let John add if he'd like to add something to that when it comes to him. I don't want to take all the glory. John is working with 911, so he's very up on some of these building changes and what's going on in the world with building, with all the costs, and it's amazing what people are paying. So that's all I have.
Due to the lack of business, the July 6th meeting, committee of the whole meeting will be canceled. The next meeting will be July 13th, and that meeting will be held in the mezzanine of the courthouse. Yay!
Where is that?
We're going
Yeah.
Is our chair still there?
Yeah, I don't know. So that's good news. Commissioner reports. We'll start with Commissioner Campbell.
I only attended one meeting since our last get-together. It was with the solid waste oversight. Basically, they're working mostly on issues pertaining to the new recycling coordinator. That's all I have, Ben.
Commissioner Getty.
I attended the Berry County Community Mental Health meeting. They are back in the building. Staff is back on site, so they were looking forward to the efficiency of that. The West Michigan Regional Planning Commission met. Lots of news regionally about work on broadband. There's been a lot of information sharing from our broadband committee with that, with other counties in our region. So glad to be helpful. And then lots of communities are investing in their parks and trails. I want us to be conscious of that because other counties are recognizing how folks are getting outside. They're using parks and trails more than ever before, and we want to make sure that those are safe public environments and inviting public environments for people to seek healthy lifestyles and healthy lifestyle choices, and that comes in an investment from the county. So I just want everybody to be aware that other counties are investing in their park system. Yankee Springs Township is moving forward with their hall renovation project and a non-motorized trail plan update. Thornapple Township is working on some sewer expansion projects. Berry County Parks and Rec Board meets this week, and I know one item that we're going to be talking about is some renovation and maintenance projects on the historical village buildings, which is something that we need to keep up on so we don't get behind in those renovation projects. It's a lot more expensive to do repairs than maintenance.
Attended the Commission on Aging meeting remotely last week. Economic Development Governance Board has a visioning and planning session tomorrow. Intended to be about a 3-hour meeting. And then we have our Health Department meeting on Thursday. So.
Yes, at Hastings Township, they had their audit presentation from Fluke and Sheldon. They talked about the street lights, the township cemetery, the Michigan Township Association membership fees. This weekend, the trolley and 2 buses were at Charlton Park. They gave out 2,800 rides from the back of the park to the area where the cars were staged. They have 2 new buses, 16 passengers. They have hired 1 person for summer help. That's all I have.
Any member of the public wishing to address the board may do so for up to 3 minutes. Hey, John.
Hi.
Go ahead, John.
I attended the transit board meeting with Hoot, and also the building committee meeting, and I was pleasantly surprised on our construction man, Mr. Vandecore. He saved us a sizable amount of money on the lock systems. And I have stepping up committee today at 12:30 here.
Thank
And
you.
then health board on Thursday. That's all I have.
All right, thank you, Commissioner. Limited public comment at this time. Any member of the public wishing to address the board may do so for up to 3 minutes.
My name is Desmond Berger. I live at 7847 Marsh Road. I just want to thank the board for helping us level that lake. I know that that's a big bite to chew at. Everybody appreciates. Our biggest concern was that if there was an issue that the water downstream would cause a lot of problems for our neighbors. We appreciate you taking that worry off our shoulders. Hopefully we can get this squared away quickly, but thank you all very much. My wife is here, had to take off, but she, of course, sends her thanks as well. Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. Is there further public comment? Yes.
I am also a resident of the Canterbury Lake and would like to thank you for adopting that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Ma'am, could you give your name so the clerk can record it and address
Rhonda Newcastle.
and your address?
She doesn't have to give
Oh,
her
she doesn't
address.
have to give the address. Sorry. I apologize so very much.
Well, for the audience, I apologize. I didn't give the deputy's name when I was swearing her in. Told where she was from and everything like that. It's Eliza Blundell, and she's from Ionia. And Ben, thanks a lot for recognizing Hod Hull. He meant a lot to us at the sheriff's office. Even when he was not physically able to help out the posse, he was sending equipment and, of course, prayers too. So thank you very much.
She's very generous.
I do apologize again. I'm still stuck on auto after 2 public hearings on Saturday, making sure people stated their name and address.
Saturday public hearing. Always a good time. Is there further public comment? Hearing none, there being no other business to come before the board, we've reached the end of our meeting. Without objection, the board will adjourn. The board is adjourned.